Check, check, toast, toast. Good evening. Good evening. See me. You will be my special guest tonight. We will cover. We will cover. You please to meet me and my fortune. We will. You will give me the honor of my name. So we're covering Nosferatu by Robert Eggers tonight. This movie just came out. It came out on Christmas Day, which I'll talk about why I think that is as we keep on going. This movie's got Bill Skarsgård again in a horrific role here. Bill Skarsgård, the last movie that Eggers did had Alexander Skarsgård, the Northman. Yo, he was the Northman. The Northman. Of course, he did The Witch, which we covered not too long ago. I think we did it for spooky season. And he's here's what I'll say. First of all, I watched an analysis of this before I went to see it for some random channel. It's pretty funny. This rat looking guy. He was creeping on her through the generations. And that is true. So tonight I'm covering Nosferatu and Shadow of the Vampire with Malkatraz. Man Monkey, which is a great movie. That came out in 2000. And I was looking forward to seeing this because mic's low. No, mic's fine. Mic's fine. You got to turn it up on your end, sir. You got to turn it up. My mic is as high as it can go, actually. Yeah, my mic is as high as it can go. So, y'all got to turn it up. It sounds fine to me. Let me check. Let me check for you. Let me see. Check, check, check. Toast. Yep, mic's fine. So, look, I saw this one the day after Christmas, and Bill Skarsgård is in another horrifying role. It's a Robert Eggers film. And I was looking forward to seeing it because we are, I can't. The mic. It is what it is. I'm up as far as it'll go. There's nothing I can do. But anyway, so I was looking forward to seeing this movie, and it was scrumptious and bumptious and pretty gross. It's a filthy, disgusting movie. I'll say that this film is like a creepypasta Dracula. And we've covered a lot of Dracula movies here. We covered Dracula the book, the Bram Stoker book. We covered that a few years ago. And one thing about covering Dracula, which it's Nosferatu. For all the non-film heads, it's called Nosferatu because F.W. Murnau couldn't get the rights to direct a movie about Dracula. So he just changed it to Nosferatu and changed Dracula's name to Count Orlok. And that's what Shadow of the Vampire is about, which, again, is a very good movie. I'm going to cover that one right after I talk about this one. And I was looking forward to the movie because I was ready to see another Eggers movie. And if he could do something better than The Lighthouse, I hated The Lighthouse so much. I wasn't really that big on The Northman. That's a movie that I should have liked. I mean, it kind of had all of the ingredients and things that I like in films, but it was too gratuitous for me. And I'm not talking gratuitous in a, I'm not being a prude about movies. I just, it's just too gratuitous. By gratuitous, I mean that sometimes the violence can be unearned in a movie, and it just wasn't great. And it's the same with Nosferatu. It's just it's kind of a cursed movie. There's one scene in particular in this that it was really, really disturbing. So gross. It was so gross and vile and kind of offensive to me that it would be to audiences. And so I'm wondering about when I see if that's part of the meaning of the film. It's obviously supposed to be vile, and we're seeing a different version of the vampire here because we're really seeing something that is really demonic and from a kind of hell pit in a really beastly, disgusting way. And so one of the things about the book about Bram Stoker's Dracula is that the book was written in the Victorian era, but it's a throwback to high Gothic literature. And so the reason that here's the difference between um, the reason that the English Romantics were created Gothic literature, the reason that it's from them, is that the the English notion of the neoclassical era, which is the era of literature that came before Romanticism, is where we see order in things created by man to mimic the ancient Greek and Roman architecture and order of society and civilization. So, for instance, we see columns. You see Doric columns, Ionian columns, Corinthian columns. You see um, the the Pantheon and the Parthenon, and these are structures that are supposed to mimic the order of the universe. Well, with the separation from the golden age, from the actual classical ages of antiquity, the separation by the so-called dark ages or the medieval era, we then go back into after the Renaissance, which introduces all kinds of elements of esotericism and the occult. We then usher in the neoclassical era, and in the neoclassical era in literature, you can see through people like Alexander Pope. For instance, in literature, the neoclassical era is defined by the heroic couplet line in verse or in poetry, which is like rhyming lines of iambic pentameter in pairs, in couplets. Those are called heroic couplets. And so the reason I'm saying this is because the order of the lines mimics, like for instance, the visual order of columns on a temple. Well, after that, you have an opposite reaction in terms of a generational value, and we go into the Romantic era. And the Romantic era is named such because it is Romanesque. But Lord Byron, who is one of the five sort of bastions of the English Romantic era, gave us the Byronic concept of the Byronic hero, and really through his life, which we've covered through his life, even through his life, we have the notion of the Gothic, and that is because we no longer see the medieval castle; we see the castle in ruins. So Gothic literature and the Gothic aesthetic is defined by order in with decay. We see decaying and crumbling and degrading physical structures, and that is perfect for what the vampire is. And the vampire, Count Dracula, which is taken from the legend of Vlad the Impaler, and has an Eastern Christian pedigree to it, because Vlad the Impaler in the story of in Bram Stoker's story, of course, is holding off the hordes of invading Saracens from the continent of Europe. And then he gets corrupted by his sense of pride and the destruction of his bride. And then we have like a haunting love that gives rise to Stoker's book. And so the Victorian era was particularly fascinated with the Gothic era and with the medieval era. A lot of things like this, for instance, you can see on any antiques, uh, show. You go on Pawn Stars, and anytime that people go in and try to sell something that they think is from the Renaissance, or that they think is from even the first century A.D., a lot of times those are kind of new fakes that were made during the Victorian era, because the Victorians really were obsessed with this. Now, this also plays into the notion of why Nosferatu was released on Christmas Day, and that's because think about the English tradition of the dark drama to offset the holiday season. Okay, so you're in the bleak midwinter, and the English environment, the ambiance is such that Christmas, as we know it, and how people celebrate Christmas in terms of gift giving and in terms of the sort of familial traditions, are informed by Dickens. And we covered this with David Patrick Harry with Church of the Eternal Logos when we did A Christmas Carol. A lot of that is from Dickens. It's Dickensian, and Dickens is he's one of the bastions of Victorian literature. So we have all those elements mixed together, and we have a kind of English pedigree for releasing a Gothic drama during Christmas time, and also the notion of the Byronic hero. The Byronic hero, which we've also covered, is where we have essentially Caspar David Friedrich's The Wanderer Above a Sea of Fog, where we have the perspective from looking from behind, and we see a gentleman in black with a walking stick at the top of the mountain in the Alps looking out over fog. We also kind of get a notion of this when we covered The Deer Hunter, of all things, because remember, part of The Deer Hunter is set, there's a kind of a triptych in the story, and in part of it, the story is set in halves, but there's a kind of three-part sequence to the story. And really, one of the major elements in this at the beginning and the end is where the characters rise up physically out of the grime and dirt of the industrial city and make their way into the lofty mountainside where we have choirs of angels singing echoing through the mountains. And strangely enough, that also plays a part there's a mirror of that in Dracula, because part of Dracula is about this, the juxtaposition between modernity and the old world, and also between the town and the city, or between the rural countryside and the modern industrial, really Dickensian industrialized city. This is really well done. It's really well illustrated in Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula in 1992, which I think is by far the superior movie. I mean, it's a different movie. That's Dracula. This is Nosferatu. It's the same exact story. It's just the names are changed. But Nosferatu, as we've seen it right here in 2024, is very different. And they did one thing very differently in this, and this was obviously purposeful. And what they did was essentially make the whole, they cut out the Vlad the Impaler provenance of the story and simply made this a much more occult, explicitly occult story. Now, there is a lot of witchcraft and the esoteric in Bram Stoker's Dracula. I mean, it's rife with that. That's part of the story. But also in the Francis Ford Coppola film, Van Helsing, played by Anthony Hopkins, says, "You, sir!" He is fog. He is fog, a vapor. He can take the shape of rat or wolf. Well, all of that is, showing that Van Helsing is an expert in the occult, but he is essentially a Christian with a knowledge of those things, and which is why he sort of perfectly forms the antithesis to what Dracula represents. And Willem Dafoe's character in this is not that he's an alchemist. He's much more of an explicit alchemist in this. That also sort of takes me into Frankenstein territory, and that's important for understanding Dracula. So before I get to the movie, one more thing about understanding the origins of Dracula that I've already covered this before, but I'm going to say it one more time because I think it's important in this, and it's important for understanding the Willem Dafoe character. One of the things about this is that if the Van Helsing character is an alchemist who is taken on by the doctor who's treating the Mina character, who's played by Jonathan Depp's daughter, Lily Rose Depp. Well, she's Lilith. Well, Dracula was the first Dracula story in English was, and I know you guys probably know this, is from Dr. John Polidori. Polidori was an interesting character. He actually looks like Count Dracula, but he was formed on the basis of Byron. And Byron really is the model for what Dracula as the seducer and as the wordsmith really represents. So what happened was that Lord Byron, John Polidori, Percy Shelley, and Mary Shelley went on a holiday to a villa in Switzerland, and when they were there, they were beset by just kind of miserable weather, and so they decided to stay inside the villa with lots of wine and feasting and plenty of laudanum, I'm sure, plenty of laudanum and opium. And they were inside, and they basically came up with games. They were playing games to try and pass the time. And because we have three writers, Mary Shelley was the daughter of Mary Wollstonecraft, the infamous Mary Wollstonecraft, who we know. We have three writers: Percy Shelley, of course, with Ozymandias, and Hail to Thee, Blithe Spirit. We've covered all these people. Well, they decided to come up with ghost stories to pass the time, and so this is when Polidori wrote. He wrote the first vampire story, which is spelled in an archaic fashion, and Mary Shelley came up with Frankenstein, and Frankenstein, of course, is about Dr. Frankenstein is an apprentice to an alchemist in Germany, and starts getting interested in alchemy, understanding science. He has some things with his mother. His love dies. He is doing lightning experiments and essentially electroshocks himself into dissociation. And my thesis for Frankenstein, of course, was and is that Frankenstein is never seen. The monster and the doctor are never seen at the same time by anyone through any perspectives in the book. And that every time they are seen by anyone or described by such, the notion of distance through varying points of view leads to the fact that the points of view are all from an unreliable narrator who is sort of Frankenstein himself. In other words, Frankenstein is chasing himself throughout the story, but because he is the monster, he has become the monster, which is sort of part of the point. So assembling the various body parts into a golem is actually him assembling himself into the romantic ideal mixed in with the kind of Blakean Gnostic ideal of the new man. And that plays a role in Dracula because essentially we're looking at the kind of mixture between the high Gothic literature, high Gothic art and aestheticism, and the new man of the industrial era. And one of the interesting things in this that Nosferatu wants to do is he says explicitly to the Nicholas Hoult character, who's the Jonathan Harker, Keanu Reeves character, that he says, do not be offended by the backwards impressions of the local people. Their rituals may offend you. A man of your high learning must find them antique. So he wants to get to the modern world where modern science and the cinematograph can be more welcoming to this demonic character. Okay, so let's talk about Nosferatu. So, first of all, what I'll say about the movie is that it does have some bright points. It has some, well, I don't know if they're bright, but they're good points. One of the great things about the movie is that it is a real movie. And what I mean by a real movie is that it is not cheap. It doesn't have corners cut. It doesn't have the kind of cheap effects that you often see with a big budget film. And it's a real viewing experience. It also pays attention to art. It pays attention to background scenes and paintings, which really affect the photography of the movie. And I think that the characters are all pretty well developed. I mean, there are well developed, well rounded characters in a sense. And I will say that also that this is a horror movie. I mean, it really is. It's horrifying. I don't think that it's horrifying in the sense that the way that the horror movie experience has come to be sort of it's diverged. Of course, I was talking to a friend of mine, and we were talking about what a horror movie is, and horror has a face and a name. You must make a friend of horror. Horror and moral terror are your enemies. They are truly enemies to be feared. Yes, they are. That's like Colonel Kurtz turning into Trump. I don't know. Anyway, when I covered Maxine, when that came out, the A24 movie. I mean that's essentially like sort of schlocky '80s movie horror turning into a kind of kitschy pop culture movie, which I thought was fun for the most part. This is like then we have horror. Like I mean, if I think of something that's the most horrifying to me, are you an assassin? Are you an assassin? You're an errand boy sent by grocery clerks to collect a bill. I think that probably the most horrifying movie to me would be Poltergeist 2 or something like I mean Hellraiser to me is horrifying. I don't like Hellraiser, but that's like horror. That's like horrifying to me. Return to Oz. Return to Oz to me is a horror movie. That's frightening to me. It's like frightening in how disturbing it is. My friend was saying, okay, well, if you had to go to the video store in the '80s in the '90s, and you had horror and thriller on the shelf, where would you put Silence of the Lambs? And I'm like, well, Silence of the Lambs is a thriller, but it is in the middle. I mean, it's also horrifying. It's a horror movie. Yes, Maddie, exactly. Event Horizon. You will see such sight. What is it? His eyes! Ah! Yeah. Well, this movie is horrifying, and it's not because of Lily Rose Depp, who Lily Rose Depp is interesting in this movie because here's Lily Rose Depp in the movie. That's her. That's her. But that's kind of cheap to me because when I watch it, I go, okay, I know what she's doing here. She did an audition or whatever, and they got her, and they were like, "Can you do body contortions?" And she was like, "Yeah, watch this." She did a Miley Cyrus with her tongue. Bill Skarsgård he's fucking horrifying, dude. He really is. I mean, it and this, and I think the really horrifying thing about this movie is you never really see Orlok. He's you never really this is why it's pretty horrifying. I think that the use of shadow and light in this is pretty wild, and the Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Coppola movie is great because we see these different iterations of Dracula. There's like 7 different iterations of Dracula there. You see him as Vapor, the rats, the human bat, the tall, the prince, catching the tears made of diamonds in the palm, and the Strigoi, Poloi. You see all that? I have crossed oceans of time to find you. D. I mean, that's cool. I think that's really cool. And he did all that movie with old school effects and sort of puppet shadow work play, which was really cool. This movie is it's really dark, and it's Orlok is a disgusting, scabby, crustaceous, ratty, creepy, filthy creature. And he really is filthy. I mean, he's a filthy creature, and I think that works in the film because they are trying to make him a real ghoul from the underworld. So what happens at the very beginning is that we see Lily Rose Depp and her character, and she is crying out for a spirit of comfort, and and she conjures and awakens the spirit of Count Orlok, who has been in, as he says, he's been in the darkest pit, in absolute darkness, and in a kind of hellish sleep. But she awakens him and calls on him, and he appears in the form of a shadow. We constantly see his kind of crook-necked, corpuscular, humpbacked, craggly, creepy shadow on wind-waving shades and window dressings, and it's pretty well done. Then we go into the traditional story, and the traditional story is basically that, we have these two newlyweds and Nicholas Hoult. Nicholas Hoult is, I like Nicholas Hoult. I think he's cool. I think that Nicholas Hoult is like the young Tom Cruise. I mean, he has the same face as Tom Cruise, and I think that he's got a real range. He's reliable. He's a reliable actor. He's never going to do wrong in movies. He's always going to be a kind of hit the marks character. I'm not sure, he's your kind of really good professional standard fare in a movie. And he actually is really great in this role. The role of Jonathan Harker is not great, because it's hard to play such a naive, kind of well-wishing newlywed without going into panto territory or into like a kind of overly lovey or a simp character. And Keanu Reeves, the thing about Keanu Reeves in the Bram Stoker's Dracula is that he looks the part. He really does. And I don't think that, I think it's kind of almost low-hanging fruit to say that Keanu Reeves is bad. I mean, yes, his accent in the movie is off-putting, but like I said in the original analysis, I think that it kind of works in a way. I'm trying to find the bright spots with this, and it kind of works in a way because his character is so naive. So he's kind of not sure in his footing, and he literally falls. He's defenestrated. He falls off the rim of the castle into the water, and he gets saved by the Orthodox sisters, and then later he gets married to Mina, and it kind of works because he's just trying to do right. But Nicholas Hoult in this movie, it's great because he tells his wife goodbye. He goes over to it's set in Germany. This one is set not in England, and he goes over to the real estate office, and he walks in, and we immediately have these kind of four Ninth Gate looking demonic, sort of weird old timey old guy characters sitting there, and they tell him that he's late. He walks in and he sees his boss, and his boss is interesting because his boss says it's providential. It's utterly providential that you're here, and we think that the guy might be a good guy. Well, this guy, the guy who played what ends up being the Renfield character in this, and Renfield is probably the best character. I was cast as Renfield in a production of Dracula, and I didn't take it. This is way back, and I probably should have because Renfield is like probably the best. I mean, it's the most fun character if you're going to be in the movie. But this one is the character who plays the Renfield character in this was also the CIA mind control programming torturer in the reboot of The Manchurian Candidate, that's a great flick. I watched the 1962 Manchurian Candidate last week with Lawrence Harvey and Frank Sinatra. First of all, do you know that Frank Sinatra runs like this? Did you know that? you know John Wayne walks like this? Frank Sinatra runs like this. Like, look at the scenes when just look at the clips of Frank Sinatra running to try and catch Lawrence Harvey in that movie, and it's very funny. He's running like this. And Lawrence Harvey, by the way, is like, he turns into Benedict Cumberbatch in the movie. His voice gets deeper and deeper until how do you do Smog? I am Smog. I am the dragon of... That's how Benedict Cumberbatch talks when he's Smog. And Also, Lawrence Harvey. Did you know Lawrence Harvey is the father of Domino Harvey? Domino Harvey was a model, and she was a model junkie who later went on to be a bounty hunter. There was a movie made about her with Keira Knightley that wasn't good, but the character has an interesting story. She actually OD'd on fentanyl in 2005, R.I.P. But anyway, that's Lawrence Harvey's daughter. So, anyway, uh, why was I talking about that? Oh, because Manchurian Candidate reboot. So we see that he gives Nicholas Hoult. He gives Nicholas Hoult his marching orders, which essentially say you've got to. He says you got to go to a country in the far east of Europe, east of Bohemia, of course, going to the high in the Carpathians, and they try to avoid mentioning the name of Transylvania in this because of Bram Stoker. But he actually thanks Bram Stoker in the end of this. And thank you for your super chats, you guys. I will get to those either in the middle or in the end. Thank you for your support. But then what we see is probably the first disturbing scene in the movie, and that is that this Renfield character, before he truly becomes Renfield, we see a shot from behind, and this is real Hereditary witch territory. So we hear this scratching noise, and we see natural candlelight, very Barry Lyndon. We see natural candlelight, and we see this naked little ghoul man on the floorboards surrounded by candles, and the camera goes up and then goes over him, and we see that he is sitting almost looks like a human sigil, like a human pentagram, and he is in an occult heptagram surrounded by sigils and glyphs, and he is writing his basically his contract with Orlok, because he is going to be Orlok's servant. The demonic. He's going to be a kind of Beelzebub to Satan here, a kind of Mephistopheles character, and he is writing the contract in blood, and it is very freaky. And so that's what leads me on to basically the premise of this analysis, which is that I wouldn't be surprised if Robert Eggers. I mean, Robert Eggers is, who knows, and he's making movies, but his movies have a darkness to them, certainly, and I think that I wouldn't be surprised if he was a Thelemite or something, or if he was, into one of these. If he was certainly much more than just acquainted with the occult. I think that there is certainly the purpose of the movie really is to kind of initiate the viewer into the relationship between Orlok and the Mina character, the Lily Rose Depp. But it's also interesting because you do find it repugnant and offensive, but I'm not sure that's bad for him. So it's very weird. It's very gross. And when we see Nicholas Hoult go off to the country, first of all, he takes off on horseback. We don't have the long train ride like we do in Dracula. And the great thing in the Bram Stoker's Dracula is that he's riding, and we see on the train, this Victorian train, and we see the various stages of his transcontinental journey, and we see the eyes of Dracula appear in the clouds over the city, which is a very accurate and real and probably truthful thing as far as the occult and spiritual darkness goes, which is one of the really probably the strong points of Bram Stoker's Dracula. And I think that this one's different. He ends up in the town of errant wanderers, as he calls them later. These are obvious gypsies that he meets, and the gypsies in town, when he overlooks them on a crag. He's standing on a promontory looking down at this village, very wander above the sea of fog, and he goes down into the village. And the first thing that's interesting when he walks into the village is that they laugh at him. And this reminded me of Sylvia Plath, because Sylvia Plath's Daddy poem, which I've covered, has elements of this in it. The village where, remember, she refers to the character Daddy in the poem as the vampire, and the villagers are laughing at you. They are stabbing you in your fat black heart and stomping on you, she says. So I'm paraphrasing, but this is essentially what happens, that they laugh at him, and then another character comes out, silences them, and he is in the wrong place. But at night, he sees a procession, a caravan of gypsies walking past with a kind of naked Lilith character on a white horse, who I assume is either going to be, you assume is either going to be some sort of human sacrifice or something. But then they go to a freshly dug grave, they dig it up, and they stake the. I mean, this is real. Uh, they are staking this Strigoi, right? This is real folklore. It's a kind of, this movie is has a much more kind of earthy folkloric take to it than the high romance of Bram Stoker's Dracula, even though it does have the high Gothic visual aesthetic in it. Well, Nicholas Hoult then wakes up, and then he finds himself on the way to to Orlok's castle, Count Orlok. And this is interesting how they did this, because there's a whole sequence in the book about the gypsy. The gypsies attend on Dracula, and they have to transport his anti-consecrated, cursed ground over to Whitby, where he is going to live in Carfax Abbey. But in this, Orlok has purchased an estate in ruins. Again, in ruins. It's a Byronic castle, and we see the black horse and carriage come forward, but it has none of the gypsy attendees or the kind of black spectral horse rider that we see in the book, in the Bram Stoker book. But he loses time here. One of the cool things is that, like, there's a real sort of dissociation that the viewer is put through in terms of perspective in time sequences. So, like, he kind of fades and then wakes up in the carriage, and then wakes up at the gates of the castle. And this is not just to signify the passing of time. You get a sense that this is really happening to the character. And what's great about Nicholas Hoult is that as soon as he steps through the door of the castle, the look on his face really changes. I mean, he is immediately horrified, and he is totally just wet with, like, just shock and awe and horror. He's really got that George W. Bush effect on him. Yeah, we went to a park in Botswana. So he goes in, and then we see, of course, when does Hugh Jackman come in? Chase says. So we see him go in, and we see now the specter of Orlok in the darkness. And the way they portrayed Orlok in this is essentially he's got like a bearskin cape on, and he's got a Vladish mustache and a kind of a Hitler haircut, with a craggly syphilitic skin, but you don't really see it. But it's his voice that really gets you. He says, pleased to meet your acquaintance. Please sit. You must eat after a long journey. Sit. That is an accurate impression. If you've seen the movie, that I think I'm pretty good at that, which is, I'm so proud of it. I'm so proud of, that's my talent. That I can do an Orlok impression. As my solicitor, you will sign the covenant. And so anyway, he signs the covenant. He signs the covenant, and later on, Orlok is going to tell the Mina character that he says your husband is lost to you, because he signed away his soul for a sack of gold. Which is great. It was pretty good writing. And he doesn't read the contract. He goes ahead and signs the contract, even though it is written in the style of my forefathers. It's all just these fucking glyphs and sigils and shit. And so he's like, okay, go ahead and sign it, whatever. But he is horrified. And when he wakes up in another sequence, we get one of the truly horrifying things about this movie. Oh, I'm just a real fired up about this, which is that he sees puncture wounds on his heart. Now, this is really well done, because one of the things about Dracula is that the characters are punctured in the throat. They are because not only are they it's the jugular vein, and it's the sort of, as Al Pacino says in The Devil's Advocate, the battleground between the body and the mind. And it takes away their voice to scream. It takes away their voice to retract what they've said. But it's also seductive and erotic, of course. It's the whole Dracula thing with the sucking the blood from the neck of the woman. But the whole point of Dracula, of the notion of vampiricism, of course, is that, and this is a kind of, this harkens back to Genesis, which is that Satan and the serpent, which is forced to crawl on its belly and is the double-tongued spirit of equivocation and the father of lies, right? Dracula represents this as a new specter of a demonic creature who has become such by wanting to have his own salvation the way he wants it, which is to live forever on earth. This is a kind of transhumanism. He wants to live forever and be his own God so that he can satiate his passions. And the way that he satiates his passions and lives forever is by living on the blood of life. And that's the opposite of Christianity, because it is an anti-Eucharist. The Eucharist is, you are consuming the body and blood of the Lord of the universe, Jesus Christ, who willingly sacrificed himself for humanity, and so that we can have salvation in him. So Dracula is basically representing a salvation in himself. He wants to be his own gods. Adam and Eve are in Eden, in God's creation, and they have everything they want, but they have to abide by they aren't the rulers. And so Satan tells them that they can be their own gods. And they don't need to do that, but they do it anyway. But that's okay in Christianity, because then we have the new covenant, we have Christ to redeem us. But with Dracula and the vampire, he is clearly bent on, literally hell bent on satisfying and fulfilling his worldly passions through living forever in living death. And so I think it's accurate in a way that Orlok is made into a beast character who also takes the form of the plague in the movie. Because when Orlok is coming back towards Germany, the plague comes with him. Death comes with him. And this is because the plague, and the viral plague, is living through feeding on the death of its host. And so Dracula represents this. So there's also a Sophoclean element to this, which is that the sins of the main character take an exterior form through the viral terror on the townspeople. So, for instance, in Oedipus Rex, Thebes is suffering from the plague, and remember that that Oedipus is trying to figure out the source of what offended the gods, and this would be his own incestuous relationship um, with his own incestuous relationship with his mother, and how he, of course, smoked his dad, right? And he is unaware. He's unaware that it happened, but he still did the thing, and so his own sins have caused this plague, and of course that's why he blinds himself, because he was blind to the truth the whole way through, and he uses a continuous series of vision and eye metaphors and eye and seeing language throughout, because he can, like this. He's again, he is an alter character for Tiresias. Tiresias cannot see, but he can see the truth of things. He can see the future, and Oedipus can see, but he can't see the truth. So we have two kind of alternate mirror characters of one another, inverted characters of one another. Here, Orlok, it represents. He's a beast. He's a true, just gross demon. And of course, his whole point in the movie really is to get laid. I mean, that's what he does at the end. So the problem with the movie is that it's too long. It's too exploratory in terms of its aesthetic themes. It's too moody. And I think that it does that because Eggers is trying to illustrate the German expressionism of Murnau's original film through a kind of contemporary medium, or a contemporary lens, if you will, but it doesn't work. It's not tight enough, and eventually Lily Rose Depp's character, who starts off we kind of see her as a three-dimensional character, but it all becomes one thing, and we see that she is simply it becomes a psychological movie where it wasn't that in the first place. She becomes the writing of it is too psychological. Her depiction is too wrapped up in the interior psychological torture of what she's done. But really, she flips. There are a number of scenes where she flips back and forth between being possessed and being herself, but there's no reason for it. And the reason that's given in the movie is simply that, her husband says something to her, and it's not like a line that really triggers her to do it. And I think that it's just kind of weak in that sense. I did like how they did Orlok in terms of the shadow play, but it's there comes a point where we have to see the character exposed, and I'll say that one of the strengths of it is that the exposure of Orlok happens at the end of the film, because we see him literally. One of the points of Orlok in Nosferatu is that his exposure to sunlight means that he is revealed for who he is, and that he is dissolved. He's dissolved in God's light, and he becomes this just racked up, bent beast creature who's just a skeletal husk, and it's pretty gross. Would I recommend the movie? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think that this is one of the things that I find most repugnant about the movie is, again, what I was kind of mentioning at the beginning about the English tradition of the dark drama during Christmas time. But I find it pretty offensive. I think that this is released on Christmas Day. I see that as sort of your typical Hollywood subversion or an inversion, and there was really nothing. There was nothing to offset the darkness in the movie to give us that kind of release, and I just see it as kind of blasphemous. I mean, I think that the Renfield character he says that he is blasphemy, and that's true in the movie, but there is no relief from that. Really, there's no relief. And again, there is one. I'm not going to describe the scene. If you want to, I don't want to make you go see the movie, but okay, I'll say this. One of the things about the vampire, of course, is the kind of Aleister Crowley vampirical spirit of what he says is the truest form of magical sustenance, and That is the blood, which is like the purest form, the purest blood, and that really is in the movie in a way. There is a horrifying scene with the character Aaron Taylor Johnson, the actor. His family is overtaken by Orlok, and we actually the wife opens the door to see Orlok feasting on, well, I'll say, his family, and it is really just even for this, it's gross. It's really horrifying, and I would say that if you're gonna have a movie where we're gonna see the relief from this and a spiritual relief from this, then that would be something that you'd be showing the truth. But in this, we don't get that, and in the end, you can tell that you're supposed to you're supposed to feel for Orlok that he finally gets his bride, kind of like you do in Bram Stoker's Dracula. But in that one, that kind of works in that. This one, it doesn't work. It's utterly gross, and then he crunches on the woman's breast and drinks her blood, and he's I mean, the sound of the blood going into the empty, disgusting, crustaceous vessel of his body is just gross. It's disgusting. And so I don't think that you guys will like this movie at all. I saw it for you, so you don't have to. So there you go. That's Nosferatu. So that's pretty, I think, pretty comprehensive look at Orlok. And yeah, I mean, he's just a gross. It's just his breathing is it's just because there's nothing, because he has no inside. There's nothing inside him. He's just a shell. So anyway, that is Nosferatu, and so now let's see. Well, first of all, let's hit this up real quick. Hey, you guys, please, if you want to, I will read super chats at the end. Please make sure you want to super chat if you want to support me. Also, please, you can grab a membership if you please. Grab a membership. And if you want to do that, you can also support me at the links provided in the in the video description and in the chat description. I would really appreciate that. And I've got a bunch of stuff coming up that I'm going to be covering. Right now, I'm kind of working on Don DeLillo, as they say, Don DeLillo's Underworld, which is one of the only books of his that I have not covered. And it's his longest and probably best known and most recognized book. Of course, I've covered, I don't know, a whole bunch of his other works. And also, I'll be covering, sometime coming up, I'll be covering Bret Easton Ellis's Imperial Bedrooms. I've got Poisoner in Chief. That's the Stephen Kinzer book on Sidney Gottlieb. So that's not a literature stream, but it's on a book. So maybe I'll cover that. A couple of other ones. And also I've gotten Martin Amis's Zone of Interest here, because I saw the film when it came out, and so I'll probably be covering that. And also, just for fun, while I was while I was watching Donnie Darko again, the Donnie Darko book is on the way, and also I've got Simulacra and Simulation. So maybe we'll look into those in the future. Thomas Pynchon, yeah, Crispy says Thomas Pynchon. If somebody wants me to cover Gravity's Rainbow, that's going to have to be with a sponsor stream. That's going to have to be with a big sponsor stream. So if you want me to cover, otherwise I probably won't cover that. So if you want me to cover one of the seminal works of postmodernism and all that, then you can sponsor a stream. You can hit me up on Mad Maximalism with 2x's at gmail.com, and I will cover that. Let's move on to a really fun movie. This has always been a really fun movie for me. I really like this one. This is actually a good movie in pretty much every way, and this is Shadow of the Vampire. Have you guys seen Shadow of the Vampire? Let me know in the comments afterwards if you've seen Shadow of the Vampire, or if you've seen any of these films and what you think. I'd love to see your comments. I mean, if you hated Nosferatu, let me know. If you like or Shadow of the Vampire or whatever, you can leave that in the comments afterwards. So this movie came out in 2000. I saw it in the cinema with my friend Paul. Shouts out to Paul. And yes, Kristen, yeah, let me say while I see your comment there, I did listen to the Professor Hamamoto stream about Cormac McCarthy, and I'm glad you put me onto that. I really like his I like his streams. I watched that and a couple other ones. So I hadn't watched him before, and I really enjoyed it. I like his style. I like his academic work, and his academic sort of dialogue in terms or monologue in terms of his streams. I thought it was really cool. And also, yeah, I saw what you're saying about Cormac McCarthy, and I hadn't heard any of that stuff. Somebody kind of mentioned that a few months ago, something about news about him, but I didn't really look into it. And I've covered so much Cormac McCarthy, that I've covered all of his work, but he was notoriously reclusive, and I didn't really, I'd seen like a couple interviews with him, but one of the things is I'm not really interested in people's authors' personal lives, as I've stated over and over again, because like with Shakespeare, we don't know their lives, and it's their work that lives forever. But I found that particularly disturbing, yeah, about that, and I did not enjoy finding that out. Can't we just have one person, please? Can't we just have one person? Ugh. Every fucking time. Excuse my language, affiliates. So, I didn't like hearing that, but anyway. But I'm glad you put me on the stream so I could hear about it, because, anyway. So let's move on, because I don't want to talk about him anymore. So let's talk about Shadow of the Vampire, 2000. And shouts out to Paul. Shouts out big time to my friend Jeff out there, Jeff Lum. My friend Jeff Lum, my best friend from drama school, who is an actor in the Royal Shakespeare Company now. And all we used to do was impressions of Goodfellas. Oh, you know what kind of questions they've been asking me? Nah. Right, Goodfellas. And brother, you are going down. Yeah. What are you, a monk? Something like that. And of course, he could do the best John Malkovich impression from Shadow of the Vampire. Man, monkey. So this movie is about F.W. Murnau, and F.W. Murnau's. It's really a meta movie, if you want to call it that. It's a movie about Nosferatu and Count Orlok, but through the lens of F.W. Murnau making the Nosferatu picture. And the movie begins as a very moody, dark-toned kind of symphony of horror with these woodcuts, and we immediately go into F.W. Murnau filming Catherine McCormack. Catherine McCormack was the actress who was in Braveheart. She went to the Oxford School of Drama, and he says, "Enough of this artifice. That such is the price of genius." So he's going to go off and film Nosferatu because he hadn't gotten the rights, but from Bram Stoker's estate. But the movie ends up being a very dark comedy. It's melodramatic in a way because Willem Dafoe. It's a really well done melodrama because Willem Dafoe, who was Oscar nominated for his performance in this as Orlok and should have won, really, is so much fun as Max Schreck, the actor who plays Orlok. And Max Schreck, the legend was that Max Schreck was so good as Orlok because he actually was a vampire. Maybe he was, but we go off to Czechoslovakia, and we are, who are these? Where are the extras? You are looking at them. They don't have to act; they have to be. And they are filming this with Eddie Izzard and a really solid dramatic supporting cast. Cary Elwes shows up about halfway through the film as the new director of photography, complete with Weimar leather overcoat, morphine addiction, and a pistol, and flying a plane. F.W. Murnau was a morphine addict and apparently a Skittles person. He's one of the great filmmakers of all time. He really is one of the guys who made movies what they are, and you can see that through watching the 1922 Nosferatu, which survives today. And as he says, I mean, the movie is about movie making, but it's also about method acting, and we've talked about method acting a lot. And this movie really puts a good sort of comedic spin on what method acting is, because they ask, where did you find that actor? He is not part of the Reinhardt. He's not part of the Reinhardt company. Udo Kier is in the movie. Udo Kier also played Dracula. I think that was in Andy Warhol's Dracula, but Udo Kier is the guy who is in Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, right? When he says, if I'd been drinking from the toilet, I might have been killed. Oh, nice to meet you, Mr. Ace. Right? That's Udo Kier. So they go off, and he says he's not part of the Reinhardt company. I found him in that hole. So we see Orlok, or Max Schreck, playing Orlok. He's not really Max Schreck. It's just a name, which is interesting because Nicholas Schreck, we have Nicholas Schreck and Zena LeVay. We have a sort of a Schreck, LeVay, Satanism, Charlie Manson connection here with this. But he's really just Count Orlok living in a hole, and he has his contract in the movie is, this is a meta contract, is that the meta contract ties Orlok to Murnau. So Murnau, played by John Malkovich, really is a kind of vampire character here, because he is vampirizing the actors for his movie. And they will be living dead. They will be dead in the movie. They are literally feasted on by Orlok in the film, but they are alive forever on screen. They will live forever in their current age on the silver screen. And so one of the things that Malkatraz tells Catherine McCormack at the beginning of the movie, she says, "Why do you have me for this film? When do you know that it is the most lucrative season of the theater?" And he says, "Why would anybody want to act in the theater when you could act in a film?" And she says, "Because the theater gives me life. This device simply takes it." And that's probably a true statement on movie making, because if not the camera itself capturing the soul of these people, we talked about industrialism versus the rural pastoral countryside, which seems like in the movie, these old folksy characters, old Bohemian, Moravian, Carpathian characters who have crosses all over their house. Oh, silly them. No, they tell Murnau at one point, don't remove the crosses from the inside of the house. They are not decorations. They are for your protection. And so we see different levels and layers of complex truth throughout the movie, and they managed to make it pretty funny, because Willem Dafoe really does savor his performance in this. He's playing Orlok, but he is interested in modernity and in machinery and industrialism, and that's because he represents desire, and one of his desires is to see the sun again, because he can't see light. He is in total darkness. Now, going back to Nosferatu, one of the things about Nosferatu is that Count Orlok says in Nosferatu that he, as Renfield represents blasphemy, he is appetite. So we talked about passions, and he is kind of the pure spirit of appetite and consumption. And that leads to a kind of, there's something to be said there about a connection between consumption. Of course, he is a consumptive character. He sounds tubercular, but also consumerism itself. And so the consumerist aspect of Orlok points towards him vampirizing people for the movie industry. And that's one of the really brilliant things about the movie. And Willem Dafoe is so good in this movie. He's so funny, because he says at one point, he says, "I want some makeup." He's discovered this film camera, and he wants to be an actor. He wants to be part of the movie, but he also has to be fed, and he's feeding on the literal movie going audience, but the movie makers. And it turns out that F.W. Murnau is really the. There are two vampires in this. It's both Orlok. There's really three. There are really three vampires in this. There's Orlok, the actual vampire. There is F.W. Murnau, the vampirical filmmaker, and then there's the audience. And the audience continuously demands more of this material. And think about that, and how effective Bram Stoker's Dracula has been in terms of making its way into archetypes and into the language of culture. I mean, I said a long time ago that, not a long time ago, it's like, I don't know, how long have I been doing this? Almost 3 years, 3 years here. But I said, let's pretend I said it a long time ago in my real life or in teaching or literature or something. I said I've been saying things for at least 3 years. Okay. No. That the movie going experience, Hollywood finds its source material and it sucks the life out of it. So, for instance, the superhero genre, which has been totally run dry. It's a husk. I mean, I enjoyed Iron Man. I enjoyed it as a movie when it came out. It was new. It was fresh. I liked Robert Downey. I liked Robert Downey Jr. Robert Downey Jr. now is a yogi or something. I don't know. He needs to go back to. Sounds bad, but he needs to go back to his late '90s stuff before all the. Did he go to the island, all that, after that? I mean, get out of here. Right? But he was great in Tropic Thunder. You can't deny he was great in Tropic Thunder. And yeah. Oh, Maddie says, I thought you were going to say you've been saying this for at least 20 years. By the way, I got something from Maddie here. You guys need to watch Maddie, Digital Minefield at Real Cooter Brown, because Maddie gave me a phrase. It is what it is, and it ain't what it ain't. And I know people have been saying that, but I really heard it from Maddie. I give him total credit for that. So now whenever I hear boomers say, it is what it is, I always go, and it ain't what it ain't. And they go, you know it, brother. You know it. That's great. So thanks to Maddie for that. But listen, so before the obsession with the superhero genre, we had essentially what was obviously leading up to that, which was the vampire genre. If you don't remember, I mean, vampires really was the thing before superheroes took over. And that was very 2000s, early 2010s. Everything was vampires. Everything was Twilight. And, one of the movies that was made during that era, by the way, I've covered, and that was Byzantium. Go back to my stream. I put the link in the video description, which is Night Creatures. I did that for spooky season about a year, back in 2023, and I covered two vampire movies, and I think at least two movies in that, two vampire movies, and one of those was Let the Right One In, which is a great, pretty dark, Swedish movie on vampires. It's pretty dark, but it's very good. And the other one is who made Byzantium? Was it Neil Jordan? It was an Irish filmmaker. I think it was Neil Jordan. Byzantium is very good. It's a new. A different take on vampires, and I just really like that movie. I don't know why. Probably because it's got a Sam. What's the guy's name? Sam that was in. He was in the Joy Division movie. What's that dude's name? He was in Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. He was in SSGB. Oh, he's an English actor. He's great. He's also 1980 baby like me, so he's cool. He also sounds like me. His voice is the exact same me. So I like that dude a lot. But I haven't seen, Vigo, I haven't seen The Last Voyage of the Demeter. And I meant to watch it, but I probably, because that's another Orlok type of vampire. But I haven't seen that. But if you suggest that I check it out, I will. But leave in the description afterwards, by the way, other vampire movies you think I should check out if I haven't covered them already. Maybe I have, but maybe I haven't. So, yeah, his name's Sam Hyde. That's exactly right. Real John Connor. Yes, his name is his name is Sam Hyde. Mama cried a different kind of tears. So anyway, so I just really like this. I've always liked reading about the Weimar era, and I like what they do in this movie. The costumes, the aesthetic of the movie is very good. They're all wearing their goggles. They're all wearing their Herr Doctor, doctor's coats. Malkatraz is fantastic. I'll tell you what, man. I really there are a few actors now that I'm in my 40s and I've sort of sifted through. Sam Riley, thank you, Maddie. I've sifted through, movies as extensively I think as you can get, and especially actors. And I was an actor, of course. I think that there are a few actors that I really just rely on in movies that I'll always see their movies, and they never let me down. And one of those is John Malkovich. I mean, Malkatraz is really fantastic. I really like him as an actor. He's funny and ridiculous, and he has a good range. And I also always believe him in movies. I always, I'm aware I'm watching Malkatraz a lot of times, but also you get to a point where it's kind of like with Tom Cruise. You get to a point where, with a lot of actors, you're aware you're watching the guy, and then you want to see the movie because the guy's in it and all that stuff. How movies entertain you. But there are a lot of movie stars that truly are movie stars, and there are a lot of actors who are in movies and they're not really stars, but they are supreme actors. And you really see a kind of high art with those people. And I really like John Malkovich because I see a theater actor in him, and Steppenwolf Theater Company, and also Willem Dafoe. I always like Willem Dafoe in movies. They're just interesting. They're interesting people. Another guy is the better version of Robert De Niro, and that's Elias Koteas. He really is a kind of an alpha De Niro. He's better than De Niro ever is. Of course, I love Shia LaBeouf. I think that Shia LaBeouf is a real actor. I like him a lot in movies. His characters are sincere, and I like him talking about movies even more. I mean, I think he's like just fucking cool. He's just really, some people are really just made for something, and those are those guys. Cary Elwes in this movie he's in Shadow of the Vampire. Cary Elwes is also a pretty underrated actor. I mean, and he shows up in this film, and he's just very cool in it. So I think that I think he's great, and so yeah. So anyway, Shadow of the Vampire, I really recommend that you see that. And listen, man, it's a dark time, and it's it's a dark time. It's winter time, and it's the new year, and I haven't done a stream here in I don't know, a few days or whatever, but I got to go down and see my family, and one of the things is that I got to go. I was just in New Orleans. Went down to New Orleans, came back through there, and it's just all the stuff happening in the world. I don't know when you're going to watch this. Maybe you'll watch it later, but I don't see this one disappearing. But I got to say, that this New Orleans thing really pisses me off, man. It really gets me riled up, and I'm trying not to get too riled up about it, but it really did. It really just struck a nerve with me, and I really, it made me so angry that I really, I'm trying not to get depressed about it, and I feels weird saying that, in here, but or whatever, but it really just kind of sucked something out of me, and it really, I mean, my sister spending time in New Orleans at New Year's Eve and living close to there, and what really gets me is that the one of the people was this 18-year-old girl from Gulfport, where I just was, and that just really fucking pisses me off, dude. It really makes me sad. And today, I was watching. I came home and turned on the Boomer News, and they were talking about, we got the Sugar Bowl. Sugar Bowl is back on and all this stuff, and that really just. And then they were laughing. We got to wrap up this press conference, and that just, Stop fucking laughing about it is what I'm saying. It's not fucking funny. It's just, we got to have serious people. We got to have serious people. You can't be, you think that's funny? You can't be laughing at, we have to have serious people. And I'm aware of all the reasons and all of the, I mean, it's obviously Seaspiracy fodder, obviously, right? And all of the things that come after this, and at some point for me, it almost becomes irrelevant. I don't even care. I don't want to. I'm aware of all of the different elements that go into it, and all of the is it the T-ism thing, and all that stuff, and I'm aware of all that, and it pisses me off. It pisses me off because I'm just so tired of. I know the world's going to keep on rolling. But what I'm pissed off about is that there's a little girl who she sneaks out of her house and she goes down there to have a good time. And I can relate. I can relate to that. When I was a teenager, I can relate to sneaking out and going somewhere and everything. And then that happens and they find, and then, oh, but the sugar bowl's back on. The sugar bowl's back on. That just, I don't want to see the dude. I don't want to see the dude's face. I don't want to hear about it. It just pisses me off, man. It pisses me off that so stupid and so senseless. Regardless of the forces that come to work to make that thing happen, or to set up the stage for it to happen, or the reaction from it, or all that stuff. I'm just pissed off. I'm pissed off that a person made that happen. Okay. And, yeah, well, New Orleans, I mean, we're talking about vampires and a vampire, but they were having a good time. People go to places to have a good time, and they were having fun, and they were just being human. And that's fine with me. That's fine. And so, that just, that it is what it is, and it ain't what it ain't, right? But hey, you know what though? For real though, I don't care about the Sugar Bowl, but ironically, I did care about the Rose Bowl, because I turned on the Rose Bowl the other day, and that's only because I turned it on and I saw my boy, return a touchdown for 60 yards, and scored 2 touchdowns in that game. And that's not just my boy. I mean, I know him very well. So that was, I think it's, what can we do? Well, I think it's important to watch people who are the best at what they do, whatever it is. If someone is great if someone you know is great at football, good for them. If someone is, a great writer, then, good for them. If that's good. And, so I don't know. I'm kind of rambling here, but all I'm saying is, I'm just, I mean, we're already on the ball with all this stuff, and we already know we're on, when things like this happen, it's just par for the course, for all you guys. I know, for all of us, and we've seen it, and and it's frustrating because it's frustrating because I was just there, I was just there, and I came out of there, and it was so beautiful. It was such a beautiful time, and it was such a great, I had a great New Year's Eve. It's such a beautiful time, and you just want there to be good times, and you want there to be goodness and righteousness in the world, and it's going to keep happening. So it sucks, but I really pray for that little girl, really pray for that little girl, and the kid was a football player, and football player from Princeton, and there was a dad there, and it's just people. So really feel bad for them, really feel bad for their families, and really feel bad, especially for that little girl. Her name was Nakira. I've taught Nakiras before, and one of them who was that girl's age, I just thought of her. I just thought of her, and that I mean, New Orleans is great, man. I love it. I love New Orleans. I love, I was just there, like in the summertime or something. I was there last summer. Yeah, I've been there every time I've been there is with my sister, and I just have great times associated with that. So anyway, so Elon says I watched Interview with the Vampire the first time during the shutdown. Yeah, Interview with the Vampire with the great Tom Cruise. Look, man, Tom Cruise is the great American. Okay, there's a reason that at the end of the Olympics they gave him the American flag, and he rode the motorcycle from Paris all the way to L.A. Tom Cruise has transcended. He is the one. He's the one. And name me a movie that's not from Tom Cruise. It's not a banger. They're all great. So, yeah. New Orleans is a great literary town. It's a great literary town. So, I'm not sure if Brad Pitt lives there anymore. He did a while back, but. So anyway, so let's look at some super chats here, you guys. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate y'all coming by. Thank you so much. And let's check out some super chats from some people here, some support. Thank you guys for supporting me. You can support me. You can support me by liking the stream. You can share it. Hey, welcome Citizen Debbie to High IQ Book Enjoyer. Thank you so much for grabbing that membership. Hey, Mo drops $20. Cheers to Mo right there and says, thank you. I always learn a ton from your channel. I love the classics. Thanks to your videos. Hey, thanks, Mo. Really appreciate you. Thank you. That's a really great comment. That means a lot. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Digital Minefield, Matty Cooter Brown. Real Cooter Brown sends $5 and says, I want to go on record as saying Tom Waits is by far the best Renfield. No one else comes close. I totally agree. He is fucking fantastic in that. Sorry to the affiliates. I mean, that is you should go back and watch the 1992 Francis Ford Coppola Dracula if you haven't watched it in a while. It's a really fantastic movie. It's also got with Nail and I in it as the doctor. He's great. Was Cary Elwes in that? Cary Elwes is in that too. Cary Elwes is in Bram Stoker's Dracula also. Yeah. Oh, Miss Lucy, you're looking fresher than a spring rain on a country rose. Oh, Miss Lucy. Yo. Oh, thank you so much. Who's this? Hold on, let me check it out. Who is this? Let me see. Hold on. I can't tell who this is. Who dropped $5? Hold on, I got to open up another window here. Hold on, people, so I can read this comment. Because it won't pop out. Hold on a second. Oh, Miss Lucy, fresher than a spring rain. Oh, you are fresher than a spring rain on an evening daisy rose. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me see. Why can't I read that? Yo, thank you to Dapple Dog for $5. Just discovered your channel and subbed. Looking forward to being involved. Bowing out tonight. Going to see Nosferatu Saturday. Hey, thank you, Dapple Dog. Really appreciate that. Thank you. That means a whole lot. Thank you. That is an awesome comment. And have fun. Have fun at the movie. Tell me what you think afterwards. Leave a comment afterwards. Let's see some other support here. Yo, thank you to... Let me leave a heart for that. Thank you so much. And thank you to I'm No Expert for that $10. PIL a few years ago, I quit supporting Hollywood with my dollars, period. Thanks for seeing this direct so I don't have to. The Public Image Limited reference is to their song. Hey, the Public Image. Hello. The Public Image. Yeah, I've got John Lydon's book. What is it? No Blacks, No Irish, No Dogs. Is that his video? Is that his book? I read it when I was 14. That was in 1994. So shouts out to Johnny Lydon out there, Sex Pistols. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. I'm No Expert at $10. Thank you to Circle G for that $10. Hey, thanks for Circle G. Circle G, who also sent me Neuromancer. Thank you, Circle G, homeboy. $10 says Tom Cruise, The Mummy stinker. Oh yeah, I remember you said that. I that's fine. But I think that The Mummy with Tom Cruise did have one strength that had Tom Cruise in it. So there you go. Plus, it was a big budget Hollywood movie, and it was again, more. I don't know. I can't give a review of The Mummy. I don't know, but okay, that's a fair point. Fair point. But still probably a pretty good movie. Let's see what other support we got here. Let me check this out real quick. Shouts out to my friend Baxter out there who's watching. Thank you, Baxter. Really appreciate you, homeboy. Happy New Year to you. Buy Baxter's book. My friend Baxter wrote the book on the blockchain, so check out his book. If you want to know about blockchain and crypto, go buy the book by my friend Baxter. Look it up. It was #1 on Amazon, and it's called Blockchain. So check that out, please. Please go buy his book. Support my friends. Thank you to Adam Hirsch for that $5 on PayPal. Really appreciate you. He says, let's see. Did you leave a comment? I can't see the comment. If you left a comment, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you so much, Adam. Really appreciate you. Hey, Chrislyn sent $5. Thank you so much, Chrislyn. Really appreciate you there. Slow Boy Whiteboard. Thank you to my friend Real John Connor. He sends $10 for Nosferatu. Thank you, Real John Connor. Really appreciate you. Hey, Jason, our good friend here sends $10 on PayPal. Thank you, Jason. You are the best. Also, we had some support come in before. Let me see this one. Let's see. Let me see where it is. Here we go. Here is Asha Lasha sent $11 for Merry Christmas listening to the Donnie Darko stream. Thank you, Asha Lasha. Thank you. That sent that between the last stream and this one. Thank you so much. And I think that's it. If you want to support, you can do that in the links provided. Of course, you can always do that. And again, I've got a bunch of stuff coming up, a bunch of literary streams, movie streams. We had to cover Nosferatu here. Let's see what's coming up. I know that Jamie and I at some point are going to be covering another Aleister Crowley book. We're going to be doing that. We've also got. Also, I've got this big ass book right here. This is The Wasteland, a biography of a poem by Matthew Hollis. My cousin put me onto this book, so I'll be doing that one. Yeah, Eyes Wide Shut is currently Vigo's favorite performance from him. Thank you so much. And from Tom Coombe. So that's one of his great performances. I would say probably the best performance from Tom Cruise in terms of acting would be Born on the 4th of July. Probably, I mean, honestly, Tropic Thunder is one of Tom Coombs' best performances. Yeah, you should follow Toledo on Instagram because she makes good edits, and she added, I think she just did one for dancing, and I think she has Tom Coombe in there. But she did a New Year's acting and dancing stream. So I mean, edit. Follow Toledo. She's right here in the chat, and you can find her on Instagram. You can find her in my people I follow on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram. But yeah, Tom Coombe is great. Look, man, I've covered Rock of Ages. How about Coomtail? Magnolia, he's fantastic. All the actors that we've covered, I've covered them all like a million times. So you can check all those out. But listen. Yes, Toledo, definitely follow her on Instagram, you guys. She makes really good edits, and she's great. So, Top Gun 2 Maverick is what saved the movie industry, I mean, that's it. He's got a new Mission Impossible coming out, which I'm looking forward to. I will see any Tom Cruise movie. I like Tom Cruise exists to entertain you and make you happy, and I find that extremely important and uplifting, that there are people who just do things to, Tom Cruise is probably right now on the phone with the studio or writing a movie or producing something or filming something. Right now he's doing something, and that's excellent. I recently came across that clip of him doing the stock car racing before Days of Thunder, where he was driving the Paul Newman car, and he just says, you really get a taste of America by doing this, and that's really fucking fantastic. So I really like that. So anyway, yeah, there weren't many good movies that came out this past year. I stopped making I used to make comprehensive lists every year, my whole life, of the best movies and the best music to come out every year. But I don't make great. Uh, I don't make music lists anymore because Kanye predicted that it was the end of the album, and with Yeezus, and that was true. It was really the last sort of true era of the album, in the mid 2000s. And so now we kind of get singles. I mean, I still buy. I'm a music enjoyer. I have 10 billion listening hours of music. That's all I do. But I don't make lists anymore of albums, and I don't make a list of movies anymore because there aren't enough really to make lists of them. I'll say that definitely. I'll say this: I did watch Bookworm, and I'll say that that was probably. I think that, and this is not just because. Shouts out to Toby out there, Toby Harvard. Not just because Toby's my friend, but also because I would say that Bookworm was probably the best wholesome movie of the year. I was really, really affected by that movie, and again, my friend is the one who wrote it, and you should really check it out. I bought it on Amazon, so I watched it. It's set in New Zealand with Elijah Wood, and it's really good. It really affected me. It was a very heartwarming movie, especially at the end. It really, really hit me at the end of that movie. I mean, I really did get pretty weepy about that movie at the end. It's about a father and daughter and on an adventure, and it was really good. So I suggest that you check that out, especially if you want to watch something wholesome and uplifting, and without the gratuitous anything. If you are afraid of watching movies, then I would watch that movie because it really was about a father trying to redeem himself in his daughter's eyes and the innocence of childhood, and it was really beautiful. It was a very good movie, so please check that out. I would say that the best big blockbuster movie of the year was definitely Dune 2. Dune 2 was just really blew me away, but that's about it. So I liked Maxine. It was good. But hopefully we're gonna have some more movies. I've been watching Michael Fassbender in a lot of movies. By the way, if you're not a member, please grab a membership and go and watch my first membership video, which was on The Killer with Michael Fassbender. And I found something interesting watching that, which rewatching it over Christmas, which was that it is interesting that Michael Fassbender in The Killer plays an assassin who dresses in the same color scheme as the Luigi character was caught in, and also is a kind of postmodern assassin, a corporate assassin with overtones of digital assistance and making his way through the kind of conglomeration of the digital landscape through receiving, his Amazon boxes and his city bike. He uses a city bike to escape, and the first place he goes after his assassination attempt or event is McDonald's. So just some weird parallels with all that stuff. So go back and check that out. So that's kind of what we're doing. That's the reason we are doing things. I think that we're gonna continue to critique and do deep critical analysis of literature and movies. I hope you enjoy it. Please make sure you like and sub. If you're not subscribed, please help me out by subscribing. Get your friends and family to subscribe. I had a great compliment recently, which was that somebody reached out to me and said that they had told their mom about my movie analyses because their mom watches movies, and now anytime she's going to watch a movie, she checks with what I've said about the movie first, and so that's really cool. That's a great compliment for me. So I really appreciate that. So you guys, please leave a comment afterwards, like and share, and that's about it. I'm gonna leave you with Rooks G to cut off his new album here. We do it live. And listen, is it worth it? Yeah, it's worth it if you're strong enough. So, peace, y'all. Peace and love. Thoughts. Peace and love. Peace and love. Love and light. Live, laugh, love. Think it, dream it, do it. Botswana, Botswana. I love you guys. I will check you on the flip. Give me another phrase. We will not negotiate with terrorists. Shock and awe. And I love y'all. All right. Peace.